please pronounce your name correctly for me?
My name is Petr Stanicky, pronounced in Czech. Yeah, Petr Stanicky.
Okay, great. Now, you were born and raised in the Czech Republic, but you've also studied in the United States. Is that correct?
I was studying 2 times, actually. Once as a student, and then when I graduated from Prague Academy, I went for the Fulbright and I studied again, master class.
The thing that I found fascinating reading through your stuff is the studio of glass in architecture, or at least that's the way it translated into English.
Yeah, that's right.
I've never heard of that. What does that mean?
Actually, in 90s or 2 decades, let's say 90s, and then a little bit after, in Umprum, there was a Professor Marian Karel, which is a great glass artist, still alive with us, working. He opened a studio. There was always glass studio in Umprum in Prague. At some point in 90s, there became 2 studios. So there was a traditional glass studio, which was led by Professor Kopecký, and then Marian Karel came and he opened a second studio, which was called School of Architecture, which is a glass in architecture studio department. The idea behind it was that it was related to the space, to the environment, and to the architecture. It was like architecture was like an open environment, like open 3D environment. So it was very much related to space, and the object was a little bit secondary in a way. The space was doing more for the object than the other way. So it was very site specific in a way, the artwork which was happening there, and very, like land art and environmentally open. So the glass was not the end, really, was not the final thing. The glass was just a medium which kind of open space and is very related to light and space and reflection. So it was very fine art oriented department, and I found it fascinating. I wasn't working with glass really before, but I was interested in figure and space, let's say, and now I am more and more just involved in a space and environment and the relation between body and space and this mindset, let's say. So for me, it was very mind-changing situation I lived in, and I didn't work with glass before. And Marian Karel said it doesn't matter, like you will find eventually your way. And it actually happened, like I found my way how to use glass in my work much later after school, really, after college.
Well, I mean, your work, I'm looking at some of the larger, what I would call sort of more the site-specific installations and these kinds of sort of where you're involving the architecture with the quote unquote, we'll call it like the art piece. They're reliant upon each other. So like you couldn't just buy that piece or move that piece to another exhibition space because it just wouldn't translate as well.
Yeah.
I find that whole idea so daunting because like I'm an artist who does an object and literally it could just be exhibited anywhere. It's a thing you can hang on a wall or somebody could buy it. So, right. Like you put so much time, effort and energy and money and thought into all these things, but it can only be shown in this one place. Are your things permanent installations or are they temporary installations?
Actually, most of them, like 90% of them, are really made for one exhibition or one event, really. All what you said, it's true in a way, like I'm still questioning, like how much longer I should be doing this because it is really very time consuming. But there is always someone who asks me, like if I would be willing, to work with this space or, to try to do anything. And same time, the adventure in it, it's something what's pushing me, like every exhibition it's new open call and you never know, how it will work. And I just want to try it. And for me, it's probably, the amount of stress, I would like to see that the piece there is so big that I still go for it, Same time, I'm really fighting with a space in my studios because I have so much material and, like objects everywhere and they are pushing me out of my space, So I'm fighting the battle, which I'm constantly losing. I mean, my wife is nice and she still is supporting me, like she's like, yeah, you should go for it, But many times I think, like, I wish I just have some objects or, some reliefs or some graphics I could. I mean, I still do some of it. Nearly every exhibition I do at least something small site specific or something really made for the space. I just cannot be without it now. And same time, people are asking me. Hardly anyone asks me. Just bring something from the studio. So yeah, it's both ways, but it's a big hustle and it's heavy, and the amount of uncertainty of how it will work. It's still quite.
Well, I mean, it's a daunting task to like for any artist to like because you want to make
Yeah.
more work, you want to make bigger work, you want to make more impressive work. But if it's not permanently installed somewhere or bought or whatever, it ends up back in your studio. That whole issue is a big problem with a lot of artists because almost half my studio, well, let's see, no, I've rearranged now, like 30% of my studio is just storage of old works, which could be used to be making more newer, interesting stuff. But we're sort of forced to do that because we have to produce these things to continue our reputation and build our careers. But we also then have to pay to store and or move. Like if we ever move, God, what a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and you're lucky that you do more like photography and 2D objects. Like if you do 3D objects, it's even growing faster. Faster and faster.
Absolutely.
That's the reality of practically every artist.
Well, yours is not just 3D, but it's fragile 3D.
Exactly. People are just afraid of glass, so that it will break.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't really break so easy. And most of the glass I have to work with is safety glass or hardened, so it's not so really easy to break. But in a way, actually, it is, but it's not too dangerous, really.
Yeah, it's meant to break, but it's meant to break into little shards.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's very translucent and, like feels light, but at the same time, glass is quite heavy,
I mean, why do you, I mean, it sounds horrible, like I'm condescending, but like, why do you continue to choose to work with glass? Like, what's the thing about glass that makes you go like, I need to continue to do stuff with that?
You know what? Because it has the unique qualities, which hardly any other material has. You can look into it, relates to light, the transparency and translucency and all these qualities and the layering which you can work with. The kind of emotional quality is much different than the other materials have. And the light space and even the space inside the material, because you can look into it. It's something very unique and still fascinating for me.
That's excellent. Now, but you're also a professor, correct?
I am, like, last year I became, or 2 years ago or something. Actually, I teach in a glass department now. Even that I didn't really do any glass when I was student, In US, I studied in a very figurative sculpture department. But truth is, I spent some time in RISD, in Rhode Island School of Design, in glass department. There is my friends teaching and I'm in touch with them. So it's my favorite actually department in whole world is a RISD glass department.
Interesting. Okay. It's a great school. No knock on RISD.
It is a great school. I had some adventurous time there. I mean, I was there 20 years ago, but I hope it's still good.
It's just like any school, it ebbs and flows depending on the quality of the professors and the quality of the students coming out. The reputations change. Like I happen to have gone to what I think was a pretty good school for my master's program, but the couple years right around when I graduated, maybe not the best years for the school. So while the school has a great reputation, that like 5 years around it, maybe not so hot.
Yeah. So I'm teaching in glass department. Actually, I started a glass department at the Thomas Baťa University. I am teaching right now. I started that program. It wasn't glass when I came. And it was right when I came from New York. When I was in New York on Fulbright, I came back and I started the glass department here. And I'm still in Zlín at the university.
And so you're building a program from scratch. Like I love doing that. I've done that at 3 schools, like where they actually sort of chose to hire me because they know that I enjoy building programs. Because there's something about being able to sort of create the foundations and the structure of a brand new program that's a little, in many ways, more exciting and more difficult than it is to just sort of walk into a pre-existing program and just be like, hi, I'm just going to
Yeah,
teach these couple classes that are already in this curriculum.
I had the same feeling, because I was before US. I was just a teacher in a sculpture department at Umprum in Prague. And when I came back from US, before I went on Fulbright, I taught in a sculpture department at Umprum in Prague. And when I came back after the Fulbright from New York, I just had a feeling I don't want to go to the same position or to the same institution because things changed. Then the offer from this new university came, and I thought maybe I just start something over just by myself, and I try to figure things out how to do it differently and do it by me. I mean, it was a little bit a nightmare in the beginning because I remember even waking in the middle of night and writing things down. I think at least it is people are telling me still that it's a little different than the other class departments. So that was the point why I was doing it, really.
Well, and that's one of those difficult things because, like, when you build a department, you want it to be similar in that it has to still offer the same foundations, but you want to make it unique enough that people would be able to look at the program and go, "That's what I want to learn." Because, of course, here in Europe, there's this mentor apprentice sort of relationship that's still important. So people are going to want to say, "I want to learn from that professor."
Yeah.
Because that's not normal in America.
Probably not so much. Yeah. I understand that it's not really, like I'm going after the person's visual feeling, visual statement, or yeah. It depends, like both ways works, I think.
I think there could be a beautiful balance of both because actually I have a full like statement on this whole idea because I don't want to mimic or like literally copy somebody that was my mentor, but I would love to be the idea that the apprentice, the next generation, basically stands on the shoulders of their theories and their techniques and then builds on it and does their own unique thing. So like while they may be utilizing some of the ideas, the concepts and the techniques, they do not look like direct copies of them. And that's the part of the direct copy is the part that I don't like about the mentor apprentice.
Yeah. I mean, copying doesn't really work because you practically cannot start, where someone before you end, he worked to get somewhere and you just cannot start, there, your own because it couldn't work because there has to be your own base you building on. It's good to have a good base. And usually if you have a good teacher, like it helps you make the foundation of your work. But you cannot really, start, he's finishing with this visual language, that's where I'm starting, it would never work.
Well, it did work that way at one point, but that's centuries ago.
It's century, but the foundation the artist had that time, is skill based, technically based. It's completely out of visual foundation that we have or students have these days. It's you cannot really compare, it's not the same.
Indeed. Now, I saw on your bio that you worked in the studio of Jeff Koons. Is that correct?
Yeah. Because when I was on a Fulbright in New York, you can have a practical trainer for a year. You don't have a Fulbright money or stipend, but you still can work in a field. You've been studying, and he just sign you a paper that he will pay you some wage, and I don't know. Health insurance, I think, was also a big part of it. You have to work for someone, for artist who is willing to pay you health insurance, and that time, like I don't know, 12 years ago or 14 years ago, it wasn't so easy in US. There was no really health insurance. Maybe now after Obama, it's easier. But yeah, so yeah, he signed me a papers. I was working there for a little over a year, and it was an experience. I had a good friends. We had a good time, actually.
Any great gossip about Jeff working in Jeff Koons studios? Did he make you sign like a DNR so you can't talk about anything?
I was signing something that I cannot really show pictures, use pictures, something, but not really about the gossip, But there is so many people working, that there's so many gossips about Jeff Koons maybe that we don't really have to talk. You know what? It was surprising for me because I wasn't a really big fan of Jeff Koons. Like my focus is on, and I thought, the guy is probably very busy. He's going to be there, once in 2 weeks, just checking how everything, is developing. I have to say that he really is involved in what's happening in the studio. If he's in New York, he's often early in the studio and he's looking on everything, and stepping in it like a director. So I have to say he really lives with the pieces and it is really him, which I have to admire, like he's really part of the work. So for me, this was something I really came back with that, it's not just happening like a parallel world for him. He is this. He really likes these things.
He is a polarizing figure.
And he's a hard worker in a way. It's something to really, point and to admire, that this is him. This is his visual kind of statement of what he sees around, and he really lives it.
Well, I mean, I respect him for what he has done. He is an amazing brand.
Yeah, I mean, this. Of course, there is a part of is he always, like even when he was student, like I was selling MoMA, something you buy like a membership cards, for a year, and when I was selling this, I was bestseller, in MoMA history safari. So he's like really, like I know how to sell these things, and like this marketing part is great, and even in his mind and about his, and he's very convinced about himself.
Well, see, but that's a very hard thing because, like, I'm an excellent salesperson. Like, if I work for a company, I can sell the shit out of their products. Like, I used to work for Banana Republic, and I was
Right.
the top seller in the entire worldwide corporation. Like, I am a good salesperson. But when it comes to selling something that I'm personally invested in, like my own artwork, I am a horrible salesperson.
Right, right. Jeff Koons would talk about himself like, yeah, I am like when I did this, even when I was student, like I sell, but then he invests a lot of the money he made into his work, and into himself. And he just continued just with his work now doing this, somehow he has this both worlds balance in one. And of course, he always talks about, like, oh, he's great in selling himself. Like we did every object practically we made there. We've been finishing. It was already sold, and we've been just finishing it, and people were waiting a few years for piece they already bought. Paid, but it was all sold.
I know. In many ways, it's very admirable, and I think it's great. But as I said, he's a polarizing figure for sure.
Yeah. But this is for a big artist usually like this.
I met him once in Doha at a symposium, and like the word that me and my friends we walked away from, we were like, he's a used car salesman.
Yeah.
Like he's that slick, and he has an answer for everything, and he's smiling the whole time. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell if it's just completely sincere and honest, or if it's completely a lie.
There is you know what, I was like working sometimes very close with him, even sketching something, and there is something like part of him feels like android. It was like something like unreal little bit. That's true. Yeah, there was something you cannot really answer. There is some question you are like, is it real? And certain slowness of it, and smooth talk, like it's like,
yeah, he has like no affectation. He's just
yeah,
like, he's like, yes, this, it's all sort of the same tone. And don't get me wrong, I'm poking fun at him, but yet he's one of the most well known, and of course,
of course,
bestsellers in the world. So like obviously I'm a bit envious and jealous in many ways. So there you go.
It is very unique in many aspects. But it's a visual statement of of a world we live in.
He's very much like an icon of our time, even
Yeah,
because I mean,
it is. It is.
the whole nature of having to brand yourself and market yourself and stuff like that has literally become the arts world.
Yeah, and the quality of things, like they are made in the highest possible quality. It's like a Bernini of our times, like it is like material wise, like it's pushed to the limits, You spend the time, like the obsession with detail. It must be some obsession, because it's unreal, like the focus people spend on something really small days and week, like polishing some edge of a balloon, like there cannot be any scratch anywhere, you know. I mean, I was there, like it must be obsession.
All right. So back to your work. So, like one thing that I've noticed, and this is very common, even on like my own website and everybody else, a lot of other people's websites, we all focus on the work. So we make like lots of images and make our websites look really pretty and stuff. But text, we don't put a lot of text on our websites, and so like a lot of your stuff, like I want to ask more questions about, but I'm not seeing any sort of context for sort of what they are and why they were created and all this kind of stuff. Do you write them? Do you write them to yourself, or do you get other people to write them? Like, how do you create these? Because I'm sure a lot of your works, because of their site-specific nature and stuff, you have to write proposals and requests and things like this. So I'm always fascinated because I hate writing text about my art.
Actually, yeah, many artists have this. I don't really like writing too much about my work because it should be said by something, something else. On the other hand, it's necessary to write, especially if you write proposals and you need to give them clear statement what it's after, which is more or less clear, but I do it. But it's maybe the problem after that. I never write much when it's finished, the piece. That's probably part of the problem because many people don't have the complex or at least wider view of what happened there, what happened and how it works, because the photography is also a problem. It's translate to 3D, like monumental 3D object, with a camera. Sometimes nearly impossible, Sometimes I think like digital, more like a video can maybe translate a piece more. At least you feel it in the environment better. But at the same time, I don't really like to look at the videos after so much.
Nobody does.
Like if it's like dense in photographic image, I usually end up with a photography. Sometimes better, sometimes not so much. It would be nicer if I could write more, or I will, because maybe I can explain some things which are not visual translated so easily. I don't do it so much, so this is a problem. But I have few friends which wrote me text about the pieces which I am happy with, but I don't do it with every installation really. Yeah, the writing is problem really, and even the translating the installation into the image or few images, it's problem. The fantasy of people works in a different ways, because it happened to me many times. People came, and if they saw the images before, they said, "Oh, I thought it would look different." I have this practically every time, like.
Well, that's the beauty of photography. I'm a photographer, and like everybody's like, "Oh, photography's real," and I'm like, "No, photography is a lie. Photography has always been a lie." Like,
Yeah, it is. But there is a certain beauty. You get to the image so much emotions and feelings. You can get really, like condense the reality through this analogic process of taking some visual image. I mean, it can be very dense. Photography can be. It's another big problem. But somehow the photography after, it's for me the statement. It's actually like a statement about the installation. I think I lived then with the image from the photography. The years later, there is more of the photography in my head. So I take photography by myself, but also I have few friends which take photography, and then the photography is usually what holds most, like in my mindset after.
Well, a lot of your work is site specific things. And so, like, they happen and then they're done. And so the only thing left of them is the documentation of them, you know.
Yeah, if I think about a piece, I usually think through the photographies. Years later, did I remember the details and stuff? It's fresh only like 1, 2 years, but then I have it just that I remember the photographies.
Oh, don't kid yourself. I don't remember work I did like 20 years ago either. And I'm a photographer.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember still the photographies.
But I'm also fascinated. So, site specific work, you're a professor. Now, I know, I don't know if the rest of the world knows this, but they will now. Professors in the Czech Republic are paid horribly. The amount of income is really poor in comparison to what they could be making elsewhere in the world or in another industry. Um, and the nature of your work is also very sort of site specific and all this. So, like, do you sell works? Do you, like, how else do you make a living? Because I mean, as I said, I know that Czech professors are not paid very much.
Yeah. The money I need for working is I have to make by selling some objects. So that's like the half of it. I usually, the money I make by selling, I put back to producing stuff. That's how it works with me. And the money I make with at the college, I have like for my family. And so I have it split. And some years are better, some years are not so good, but I still can make some stuff, and same time, I have a good support from few companies, even like the glass. Sometimes I get, like the glass company I work give me a discount, or sponsorship, because some bigger objects would be, like just the glass. If I would go to buy it, would be like, I don't know, $15,000 on the object is, just the glass, so there was a time that they could give it to me all free, like when I did the VNA, the AGC gave glass for free, like a sponsorship, and it was all hardened and stuff, like, and some other, like Czech centers paid for shipping. Now I have to find a way, it was very unique that it was for free, but usually I will get some discount.
And I love that. Again, I'm from photography background, like, so like Canon and Nikon, like, and Epson, like, they'll do sponsorships and stuff like this. But like, if you're I'm thinking like a painter, like paint companies don't, offer scholarships for paint, and canvas companies don't offer canvas discounts or sponsorship. Technologies, I feel like, are very good with doing that because they want to push their new technologies. And so those people can get sponsorships and they can do really adventurous things. Whereas the people who are working in more traditional mediums are sort of left in the cold and we have to figure out how to fund our own projects.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I am maybe luckier in a way. Lately, I work very much with industrial materials which are around us. My wife once told me in a van, with moving some exhibition somewhere, and she said like, "Oh, your exhibition, it looks lately just like Hornbach." You moving stuff from Hornbach, this Baumax.
For those in America, that would be a home improvement center. So that would be like Lowe's or Home Depot. So anyways, go on.
Exactly. Like Home Depot, like you're buying stuff from Home Depot. Maybe it's a little bit like advantage for me that I'm asking sometimes for companies which are not really working with any artist, and they are like, I'm just this unique guy, first one after 15 years who came and said, okay, I'm doing this art project, and could you give me some material for this? It will look like this and this. And usually they will give me a good price.
Well, see, it's interesting because, like, in the United States, there are these like tax deductions. So, like, if a corporation decides to donate something or give a discount to an artist or an arts organization, they actually get a tax incentive kind of thing. Like, they get the ability to take that money, the stuff they gave off their income sheet. Is that true in Europe? Do they get something like that?
I think it works with a taxing company. Then for them, they get some discount on the tax. It's similar. I'm not sure if it's same, or what percentage, but I think they can do this. Yeah.
Good to know. I got to go seek some sponsorship then.
Yeah.
But some of your pieces are quite colossal and monumental, specifically as far as like glass works go. I mean, they're quite large. Do you write grants? Do you do residencies? Like, how do you sort of do all of these processes?
Now and then, I write some grants for some bigger projects. I did something in London this year for a biennial, and I got a grant, or my wife helped me to write the grant. I couldn't really do it, but my wife is happy to help me with this, which is great. So I got a grant from like a Minister of Culture for this, because there was some fee, involved in it, which I got paid from a grant. Like every year, I try to get some grant at least for some project. But I have like 2 or 3 projects usually a year, and I have a grant usually for one only.
I'm sorry, I just got to say, like, you're saying you do 2 or 3 projects a year, and you only get grant funding for one of them. That's monumental. Like, as an American, we're lucky if we get one grant a decade.
Right. Yeah. I usually get some grant every year. Like this is not a grant of, I don't know, like $20,000 was the grant for London. That was great one. It was like the
That's epic.
biggest in a decade.
Yeah,
But it was,
that's fabulous.
But yeah, I was very happy.
I mean, I've noticed that the region, so I'm not going to say just the Czech ministry and the Czech culture, are very supportive of the arts. So like I've seen lots of great stuff in Austria, Germany, Poland, and of course Scandinavia funds the arts amazingly. Mm-hmm. The infrastructure is fabulous for supporting artists in this region, as far as like my perspective coming from America, where of course they don't support the arts at all. It's completely capitalistic, the general whole. So like I love it in this region, and I wish more people understood just how supportive this region is of arts and creativity. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're not going to be wealthy, but we can at least afford to do what we want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I got a grant. Just to get a grant, I worked so much, and I didn't really made something extra. Like I spent it, but it was a great support that it could happen. But at the same time, there is a regions, the rich, like the Scandinavia. Like I had a friend, Isa, who was worked for this company from Portland. They organized exhibition in Scotland, and she was one of the artists, of the 5 artists. We did the project there. Anyway, this the American couple, they invited us, and we stayed in their house, and we worked in. But this Norwegian girl, she has a grant for 10 years. That's the grant she can live on and work, and it's for 10 years. I said, like, Isa, you lucky you live in this decade, That's something, She got before, first you got only for 2 years, you need to get this for 2 years. And after that you can apply, and they decided she, I don't know, did well probably for them. They gave her a grant for 10 years.
I met a lady in Finland that she was complaining to me that her government only buys her art supplies and pays for her studio. And I'm like, that's everything. Like if I got
exactly. That's what you need. They don't buy the pieces from me. Then after, like they should be paying for the studio and then buy the piece.
Wouldn't that be epic? That'd be amazing if like some government actually like started like a program where they would do a 10-year like stipend, basically like, hey, we're going to pay for you for 10 years and once a year you have to donate a piece to our collection. I am sold. I'm there. I will gladly do that.
Yeah. So in Norway there is a possibility to get a grant to work for 10 years.
I'm not Norwegian.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be a Norwegian.
Well, no, I've heard stories that like if you basically make a collective or sort of work collaboratively with people in that culture, you can also still participate in those. So like it's not just 100% for Norwegians, but if you work with a Norwegian, then you can actually apply for those, even if you're not from that region, which is so exciting to me.
Yeah, so there is a different strategies, but same time in US there is some states like California, they are supporting some public arts, because I have friends I was exhibiting with, and they have a public art projects quite well paid, and it's supported by some like Californian government probably.
Yeah, I know, but it's so political in the US.
It is probably, like how to get it is, but it's only some of the states inside the US probably have this, and who knows for how much longer,
Well, and in most of those cases, you often have to reside in that state. So, like, somebody from Colorado cannot apply for a California
yeah,
project kind of
exactly.
thing,
So it's very, yeah,
which drives me
which is so
nuts.
silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so uh, like a local close up.
I mean, I understand it. They want the people who are part of the tax base that's basically paying for the government, that the government's then funding this thing to be able to, benefit from it. I get all that, like from like a logistical, like accounting purposes. From a philosophical purposes, it's sort of like, shouldn't you be putting the best art out regardless of where the person lives?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's one big state, where you could move easily, should be moving all around and be very open to any environment.
So speaking of that, so you mentioned that you make other objects that are for sale and that you sell on a regular basis. I'm envious/jealous. So like you sell on a regular basis?
I mean, I'm not selling on regular basis, but now and then, like I sell pieces, and it's big part of. I have pieces in few museums and kind of public places, and that usually, help a lot. Usually, or some private persons buy.
I love it how you're just like you're just like breezing over it. I've got a few pieces in a couple museums. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I do.
Come on, you've
Yeah.
done exhibitions at the Victoria Albert Museum. I mean, for fuck, come on, you've got a
Mhm.
really good looking resume.
Yeah, they even bought a piece from me, but it actually broke. They bought it from exhibition somewhere in Edinburgh or something, and it came. Someone packed it back in Edinburgh. In London, it was broken already. I'm not sure how it was, but I think they paid me insurance, so I got the money.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be better to have it in their museum?
Yeah, that would definitely be much better. So it will come again.
Okay, good. You're going to make that again for them, right?
No, 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 no. Hopefully, they will buy some piece eventually, some other piece.
Okay, so you just took the insurance money and moved on.
Yeah, because I actually offered them, I can do it again. And they said, oh, no, no, no. We don't want to. We wanted that piece. They didn't even wanted to play the game, like, oh, you will give us a second one of the line. Somehow they said, like, oh, they probably needed to spend the money right away
Yes, probably.
or something, like there was something, because they'd be like, no, 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 we don't, we will buy something else, and you just have it.
Maybe they broke it intentionally within that year to use their insurance rider as well.
I don't know. Anyway, V&A is that's actually my favorite museum.
It's a beautiful museum
in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, okay, wait. So are all of your pieces one of a kinds, like, or do you work in any form of multiples?
I do have few pieces, but usually, like I don't have like the pieces that I cast like 3 times or 4 times, and sign it. Usually, it's very unique. Some objects I did a few, like twice. I had to did it like over again from the beginning. Really, it wasn't like I cast that piece 3 times and I sold it once and I have 2 of them still with me, or I did the process over from the beginning. Like I did this lead piece I call anthropoid, which is a lead relief from the wall where was the soldiers in the crypt of the church where soldiers hide, the soldiers which killed Heydrich, SS officer, who was during the Second World War. He was a ruler of Bohemia at that time. And there is the church. The soldiers been hiding, and they killed themselves after. And the wall there it has a relief after the machine gun bullets, and I did this lead relief of it. So I did this piece twice, but I had to do it over from the beginning.
I've got a totally random question because I'm thinking about the fact that you were born and raised in the Czech Republic, you were educated, your primary stuff, and then you went to America. If you had a choice, would you choose to be sort of more part of the European arts community or, let's say, the Americans arts community?
It's hard to tell. When I was in US, I loved it, and I even enjoyed my time in New York so much. I would even stay longer, But I had to, after years or something, I had to go back because of Fulbright. You're supposed to come back to the country where at least for 2 years or for some time. And that was my time. It was a good move. But if I didn't have to, I would probably stay in New York for a little longer. But on the other hand, somehow I love Europe so much, culture, heritage, history, architecture. Somehow I feel like I belong here. Art-wise is really fascinating for me because the culture is, like we are part of the culture, like we didn't made it, we inherited the culture, and the culture I am in, it's like I feel related to Europe so much.
Well, see, I find it very interesting well, I shouldn't say all of Europe, but in the Czech Republic at least, there's a bit of like still in the same way that they do in America, they still sort of look down on artists. But like here, it's almost like you should be struggling. You should be that poor, struggling artist. Like it's almost like that's more admired than a successful artist here.
Yeah, I mean, it is a cliche, really, maybe, but the struggle probably relate to avant-garde, avant-garde of late 19th century, like all the, poets, writers, they struggle. But same time, you have the biggest artists from like Renaissance and Baroque, they've been very rich. Still, they struggled with the art, but they've been rich guys, like even in Czech that time. But all the Renaissance artists been in Florence. They've been so rich,
I know. I don't understand where this whole concept of like the starving artist came from. I fucking hate that term.
I think it's the avant-garde of 19th century, late 19th century, because there was written so much about it, stories, and you had movies, and Van Gogh, who never sold a piece,
It's been overly romanticized, I think.
Yeah, it's romantic idea of that art can come only if you are starving. If you're not starving, you probably not good art is happening.
No, that's horrible. Like I've been
It is.
starving and it's not a romantic thing.
It doesn't really help,
No, it does not increase your creativity. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And the frozen paints doesn't work better.
No.
Some aspect,
No, you need heating in your home and your studio for sure.
Yeah.
So you're in the Czech Republic, which has a long history of glass art. And so, how does that sort of all fit together? Because, like, to a certain extent, it's a great burden to have to sort of be part of that sort of iconic Czech glass history.
Yeah, but I don't really feel like, like I'm more a visual artist / sculptor. I'm not really in a traditional glass forms or techniques, like I'm not really this kind of a glass scene artist, like the traditional glass techniques which are used in more or less contemporary visual, scenarios or designs. There is a big tradition, and also there is a many glass artists which work in that very traditional way. It's not really my language, and I don't like the glass because I love the beautiful vessels and like casts. It's not appealing to me so much. So, and I don't really meet with this scene, with this glass scenes so much. So I'm standing a little bit on the side, more as a fine artist, let's say.
Well, like you even have a thing on your website that says intervention in architecture as like a style that you do. And like, I see that like there's a sense of like almost taking a space or you're taking architecture and you sort of try to deconstruct it in some way by putting barriers and creating other kinds of things. And like, so there's this very interesting play of like, because most artists, like you have you have like a section of glass, sculptures, drawings, and then a term like I'm guessing that you made up for yourself, which is intervention in architecture, which I think is a fascinating sort of direction to go in with art.
That's something what I do, what's really in me, like the strongest right now, like what I question. I came to the conclusion or to the idea that I'm fascinating with space more than with the object, in a way that I kind of relate it to environment or, to surrounding. I am intuitively connecting myself to the space than to the object. So the space is maybe more for me than the objects in it. That's something what what I'm now and then and over questioning, in the space I work with. You know. When I worked, for example, in VNA, they gave me so many different spaces, like I could choose. And I choose the two for reasons because I was coming back and forth, and I just wanted to feel the space and the light in it and see it in the different times of the day and see how, how it relates to people and all the space is more than the object, really. That's what I want to say.
That's great. Is any last sort of topics there, or anything that you want to talk about that maybe I didn't know to even ask you about?
When I graduated from the glass in architecture department, my final project, I didn't do anything with glass and not really with the architecture
Wait, I'm
either,
sorry. You graduated from art and architecture and did not use glass in architecture. Sorry, art glass.
No, not really architecture in a way, but actually there was an architecture. But you know what my graduation project was? That I found old road in a countryside, which wasn't used for maybe 40 years because it was quite narrow and you could use it only with a horse and horse truck, let's say. It was from the village up to the horizon and then after the hill, and on the top of the hill, it kind of disappeared with the ground. The road was cut negatively into the ground and was paved with stones, but you couldn't see it because after the 40 years there was a trees growing and you couldn't see the stones because there was like, I don't know, 40 centimeters of clay already. My project was I cleaned the road back to the stones, and it was maybe, I don't know, 250 meters of the road, and I cut the trees. I spent like nearly 3 months doing it by myself, and I cut the trees and I built the fence on the side and I clean it back on the stones so you could see the relief from how it was from the trucks, like it was a little bit bended. And all the clay I cut out, like with the roots and stuff, I built a little of the wall on the side. And from the narrow trees, I kind of built a traditional wooden wall on the side, so made it higher. So that was my graduation project, this land art thing. And I did it by myself. And it was a unique experience even to work, alone in a countryside, not really meeting. And on the end, I remember it was so intense that I didn't even wish to meet anyone. It was just me. And if someone was passing by, I just sit on the ground and wait because I didn't want to talk to anyone. And I did my, I don't know, 10 meters a day, I could do, or 8 meters, depends how many trees there was and roots, because cut through all the root. And then you had to fix some stones because some stones been falling down because the trees, like pushed them out from the wall. It was a unique experience, like I probably will never do this, but if you are 25 with the idea of an artist, you have time to do this.
And they let you graduate with that from the glass and
Yeah, from the
architecture.
glass in architecture. Yeah, and actually, I think I got even some prize for it, for a graduation project.
Nice.
Yeah, so you let me. But yeah, I had a very good professor. Yeah, Marian Karel. Yeah, so this was my graduation piece. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. It was great.
Thank you very much for listening to the complete conversation. We would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, studio mates, anyone with an interest in the arts and creative endeavors. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by Mickey at CushAudio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. As we all know, funding and financial support for the arts is incredibly important. So when you have it, you got to thank it. So I'd like to thank EEA grants from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway, They are working together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. And I'd also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Czech Republic and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.